has gone wrong with the rollout of the vaccine that we've seen phone lines jammed, websites crashing?
There's a lot of demand. I mean, I think at the end of the day, excuse me.
If I could finish my question.
You just said what has gone wrong, so I'm answering the question.
If I could complete the question, though.
So you're going to give a speech, or you're going to ask a question?
With all due respect, Governor,
you asked the question. I'm going to answer it.
I'm trying to finish my question.
No, you're giving a speech. You asked the question.
I am trying to ask you the.
You're going to ask how many questions? You get 3? They only got 1 question. Why do you get 3?
With all due respect, Governor, I'm just asking if I could finish my question.
You didn't. You finished the question.
I did not. My full question is what went wrong with the rollout of the vaccine when we've seen phone lines jammed, websites crashing?
So you're repeating your question.
To complete it for you, Governor, we've seen websites crash and also senior citizens waiting overnight for the vaccine.
Where was that at?
We've seen it in Duval, Broward, Orange, and Lee County.
And why was, like in Lee, why did that happen? Did you investigate why?
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not the governor of the state.
Okay, but you didn't investigate why that, like in Lee County, why was there a big line? Did you investigate why?
Could you tell us why?
Because we distributed vaccine to hospitals, and the hospital said, first come, first serve. If you show up, we'll do it. So they didn't use a registration system. There wasn't anything that was done, and there's a lot of demand for it. So people are going to want to go ahead and get it. So are you saying there was no plan then from the state to make sure that senior citizens didn't wait outside overnight? So the state is not dictating to hospitals we're not dictating to Carlos Magoya how he runs his operations here. That would be a total disaster. These guys are much more competent to be able to deliver healthcare services than a state government could ever be.
Knockout from Ron DeSantis against a CNN fake news journo. I've never seen that one before, but there she was. I like this. Republicans have to do this. When you're up against a 95% Democrat media, when you're up against a news apparatus that will do everything in its power to help one side and to crush you, to attack you all the time, you've got to take every opportunity to point out the bias, because otherwise they get what they want and they win. So you've got to say, hold on a second, why is the premise of your question based in the failures of the state and you want to do some long rambling speech? Look, she wanted her MSNBC moment. Well, she got her Fox News moment, perhaps. She wanted to be able to attack Ron DeSantis, who has been the best governor of a large, populous state in the country at handling COVID. All right. People vote with their feet. The numbers don't lie. When you see the top places where Americans are moving, and this is from, there's U-Haul, the big moving company, they put out their data. There's other moving companies that have done the same. Where is everybody going right now? All right, we've been in a crisis. States are doing different things. And this is the way it's supposed to be, right? States are able to pursue their own pathways to deal with a crisis like this. And where are people fleeing and where are people showing up? Well, they're leaving in unprecedented numbers, at least in modern history. New York, California, New Jersey. They're leaving big blue enclaves, right? The heart of the Democrat financial, money and political power infrastructure. They're saying, this is just crazy. Where are they going? Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina. Either somewhat red or very red states, but also states that have low or no income tax. States that have been more open during the COVID pandemic. Ron DeSantis has been basically running one big move here, it's better ad during all of this. And to our listeners in the Miami area and in the Tampa area, we got WFLA and WIOD. To our listeners down in the Florida area, we would just say congratulations for already being down there. Right? Good job. Good job. So I've just got to tell you, I'm amazed that the broader perception hasn't shifted faster here. You see, everyone's going to places that are doing a better job with this. And they're fleeing the places that the media pretends. Gavin Newsom and Governor Cuomo, Governors Newsom and Cuomo are a disaster, an absolute disaster. And all the data shows it. You got 22,000 dead in Florida from COVID, with 2 million more in population. You've got over 30,000, and now I think it's like 33 or 34,000 dead in New York. That's a lot more. That's a much bigger death toll. And Florida has an even higher percentage of seniors. Remember, the biggest vulnerability group is senior citizens. You'd think that Florida would have been hit worse than anybody by this, but no. And in terms of deaths per capita, they're essentially in the middle of the pack. But understand this: they're in the middle of the pack for a state that has a lot of pretty dense cities, and also for a state that hasn't been closed down. The closed down states should be they should be able to point. The lockdown states should be able to point at more open states and say, "Oh my gosh, look at what a terrible job you've done. Look at how much better off we are." Not going to do that in California right now. California is having its worst ever period of COVID cases. Los Angeles hospitals, according to the Daily Mail, have suffered a 1,000% spike in admissions because of COVID, and ambulances have been told to stop transporting patients with little chance of survival. Now, Los Angeles was held up as a model for all of us, and I think we need to remember this. Los Angeles and California, they were, we wear masks, unlike you dumb Trump supporters, which isn't even true. People all across the country wearing masks. But they had this belief that the only people that don't wear masks are Trump supporters, and therefore they were they're really horrible about this too. You know, it was our fault when anyone on the right got sick. It was our problem that we had created. Well, what's the situation in Los Angeles? Why is COVID so out of control there? It has a relatively moderate climate. I mean, it's not quite Florida, but pretty close to it. Why is it so much worse off? The people that told you they knew what to do and their policies would work were wrong. They were wrong. They can deny this as much as they want. They can pretend it's not true. They were wrong. Didn't work. They can say it's because we didn't do a good enough job. They can have all the excuses they want. But at the end of the day, you know, if this is a war, their battle plan did not succeed. All right. The generals need to get fired. That's what's happening in California. Meanwhile, in Florida, yes, it's not perfect. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are getting sick and a lot of people who are dying in Florida from COVID, but that's happening everywhere. But Florida is still open. And Ron DeSantis isn't going to sit there and have a CNN reporter do a speech under the guise of a question to basically be, why are you doing such a bad job with the vaccine rollout? Have you seen such an aggressive question posed by any CNN journalist to Governor Cuomo ever? Particularly about his disastrous COVID response? No, of course not. Because this is all important to the overall narrative. There's a broad narrative here of who is better at handling this public health challenge. The same way that we would have this on issues of national security. Do you trust Democrats or Republicans more on national security? For a long time, it was a huge, clear favorite of Republicans, and then it balanced out a little bit after some of the Mideast wars. But I think it would still be, I'd have to check the most recent polls, Republicans tend to have an advantage there. Well, on who do you trust to do a better job in a pandemic, they've blamed Trump for all this, but really you have to look at this on a state-by-state level. And Republican states are doing better in their fight against COVID than large Democrat states are. And now I know one of the highest deaths per capita states, for example, is Massachusetts, where you have a technically Republican governor, but it's a Democrat state. Overwhelmingly Democrat voters, and the politicians that have power there are, this guy is not like some Trump supporting Republican either. He's kind of a fakey Republican, you know. But you look at the places that have had the worst results: New York, Michigan, New Jersey, Massachusetts, now California. Really bad results from this. And the media can't allow this to be a widespread recognition. They can't allow people to figure out, hold on a second, I thought Democrats were the science people, and they wear masks, so it's all so much better. Why is it so much worse in their state? They probably argue about population density, that is a reasonable point to make, but that doesn't explain the full disparity. Look at Texas. Look at Florida. Where would you have rather been during this pandemic? And it's states that are more red, even with large cities, even with huge populations. You'd rather be in a state that's more red. And then you also have the growth of the tyranny mindset among Democrats. Do you know that in New York right now there's a bill that has been in circulation that would allow Governor Cuomo to just detain people who are believed to be a public health risk. Let me get into this, because these details, this is chilling. And if they can do it in New York, trust me, they're going to want to do it in California. There are other places they'll try this as well. And if you think the federal government under a Biden administration is going to try to step in and protect your basic constitutional rights, you're in for a surprise. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.